Hey everybody, this is Tim Hinton from the Marching Roundtable and from marchingartseducation.com.
And this is John from ToneDeafComics.com.
John, thanks for doing another fun conversation with me. We're going to just discuss our favorite film composers, and
Yeah,
hopefully people will just enjoy these conversations, have some fun with them, and of course check out what we're doing at each of our websites and stuff.
yeah, and make sure that as we go throughout this, put your favorite composers in the comments below as well.
Absolutely. In fact, hopefully you've sort of made your list. If you haven't made your list three, like pause and make your list of your three and see how it matches up with us. So I'm going to make you go first this time, John. Who was your number three on your
Yeah,
list? By the way, I wanted to say this was a really, really hard task for me. Like
yeah,
a very long list. And so we're
it,
going to do honorable mentions at the end.
yeah, it is a very long list, and I have to say, at work today, I asked coworkers to do the same thing because there's some people who are in music there. Like another guy, March Bluecoats, as well on the team.
Cool.
And they brought up the list of composers. Everyone's a white man, except for like Rachel Portman. And it's like, holy mackerel. Like,
Well,
geez Louise.
well, that's
So anyway,
whole nother conversation.
yeah. Yeah. All
But
right. So,
but yes, but you're right. That is an issue. But
yeah.
those are who got the jobs, okay?
Right.
Or maybe who had the opportunity to get the training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, who's your number
Yeah.
three?
All right. My number 3 is James Horner. Um, he's done so many like great themes in movies, and that's what I more latch onto with him are his themes, like just beautiful themes like Apollo 13, Braveheart, Legends of the Fall, Cocoon. Even though it was not a good movie, Deep Impact has a really great wedding scene that the music's gorgeous. Just so many Beautiful Mind. He's got so many great movie soundtracks under his belt, and like too many to list here.
Well,
So
I'm going to interrupt you and say that James Horner is my number three too.
nice,
So we can go
excellent.
ahead and talk about him. And my favorite James Horner is Avatar.
See,
I
I've tried to
love it.
listen to that soundtrack, and I need to go back and listen to it because it's been probably at least 8 years since I've tried to listen to Avatar.
I
So
love it. I mean, I listened to it when that movie came out, and I listened to that just on repeat in my car.
okay,
Particularly track 5, which is I wrote it down. Where did I write it down? Becoming one of the people.
okay.
He goes into the Na'vi, and there's this whole scene where he's learning the ropes of the Na'vi, and I just listened to that on repeat.
Tim,
I
I
love it.
haven't seen Avatar all the way through because we try. I know. Shut up. We we tried to watch it, or we Shelly liked it. I tried to
I'm
watch it,
going
and
in the morning. Go ahead.
I fell asleep only because I was tired. Only because I was tired, and then when I woke up, the movie was over. But that's how it goes for me nowadays when I watch movies. Is I'm zonked. So
John, not only did I see the movie like 10 times in the theater, but I have 4 versions on different DVDs.
why?
Because I love it so much. I have the original, then there was the director's cut, then they went into Blu-ray, then there was Blu-ray special edition,
Is there
Electric
time to get rid of
Boogaloo.
the
I don't
other
know.
ones though? Once you got Blu-ray?
I still have them all.
Okay.
I love it. It's one of my favorite movies. I love it. I want to be a Navi. I've got all right here. Look, I've got my Ikron. Would you remember this? Did you remember enough of the movie that when they flew around on the Ikrons?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
have this. It's
remember.
right here in my office. So I can wear it like a hat. No,
So
so anyway.
so
All
do
right,
you
so
like
James
the
Horner.
Avatar section of Animal Kingdom?
Oh my God, it's fantastic. Have you not been?
I have not, and it looks great.
It's
Looks good.
maybe one of the best rides I've ever been on. Definitely
Okay.
the best ride Disney's has produced in 10 years is the
Okay.
flight of passage at the not you're on an Ikron and you're right and it's fantastic.
Nice.
All right, so James Horner,
Yeah.
and not just because of Avatar, but I mean like there's a huge list
Oh,
of
it's
things that we
so
love.
long. Yeah.
And of course, he was killed in a plane crash a couple of years ago. Was so
Yeah.
tragic, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so sad because I just loved his music. Titanic, of course, maybe his
Yeah. Right.
biggest soundtrack ever. So yeah,
Field of Dreams. Great.
so
Like,
many.
yeah. So good.
Okay, so we had the same number 3. What do you have as number 2?
All right. We may have the same all the way down the list. I don't
No,
think so, though. I
no,
think you're gonna.
there's absolutely no way you have my number two
Okay.
on your.
No, I know, but I feel like mine are more of the like what people would pick, and yours will probably go off the list a little bit here.
No,
My number
we're gonna have the same number one, I think. But let's see
probably
what your number two is.
number one. Yeah, sure. Hans Zimmer is number two,
I
and
did not put.
no, for the longest time, I was like, I don't like. He's had good stuff like Gladiator and like Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay, like that's fine, but it never really did anything like elevated him to the top of the list until his soundtracks with Christopher Nolan. The Christopher Nolan movies, like holy crap, those are the ones that just those in themselves put it at number two. Like I think my favorite movie now of all time is Interstellar, and that soundtrack I can just put on and listen to.
That's true. That's
There's
fantastic.
so many good parts of that soundtrack. And then there's like Inception with the time thing, and just like what he does, especially with these Christopher Nolan films, there's so many like brilliant things that he does where he'll like slow time down in the music and speed things up. But like in Inception, it's based off of a song and he's totally slowed it down. And then in like Dunkirk, he uses the Enigma variation, the Nimrod variation, and that one too, like one of the big points of the movie, he slowed it down to like 18 times slower. I can't remember, but it's so gorgeous, and just like what he does to manipulate it, like how Christopher Nolan manipulates time, he does so in the music as well to showcase that.
That's interesting. So when I think about, I appreciate Hans Zimmer, but not always. But I think there's no question that he's incredibly talented. And here's the way I always think of Hans Zimmer. I think he creates soundscapes.
He does, and that honestly is like one of my problems with movie soundtracks now. Like you don't get a lot of theme stuff, but he adds in a lot of theme as well.
I agree, but he is really good at, like, there's these things in the Batman movies where there must have been 25 trombones in the studio.
Yeah.
They're all eating the mics, and it's fantastic. It's incredibly effective. So I'm not poo-pooing him. I'm just not putting him on my list. But I mean, he creates amazingly effective soundtracks.
Right, and that's like I do like more thematic soundtracks, and he doesn't always provide that. But like what he's doing is just like so good that
I agree. Okay.
Like I do find myself going back and listening to his soundtracks a lot. Especially those three, Interstellar, Dunkirk, and Inception. Like there's just a lot of good stuff. And he like his music, kind of like another composer, like the movie would not be the same without his stamp on those movies.
Well, and that's true of all great soundtrack composers, don't you think?
Right. Yeah.
Well, so I'm going to take off something you just said, which was perhaps there's not a lot of melodic and thematic material.
Yeah.
My number two is the king, in my opinion, the king of creating melodic material that is so tuneful.
Yeah.
You're not gonna expect this name to come out of my mouth.
Who is it?
Alan Menken.
Oh, no, I did.
Really?
Because I remember I did was it March Madness brackets, and I think you mentioned Alan Menken, and it wasn't until you mentioned something I was like, oh yeah, I forgot to put Alan Menken on the
thing. For me, I love Beauty and the Beast, I love The Little Mermaid, I love Aladdin, I love Pocahontas. Like all of these Disney films, to me, the music makes it, and the soaring melodies that he's so great at, and then the way he takes those melodies and creates the soundtrack for the movie. I mean, he won a lot of Oscars with all those soundtracks, and I think deservedly so. And I just think you tend not to think of him when you think of Bernard Herrmann and Rosa and all these famous, Morricone, these are like huge names. But for me, I literally sat here today as I was getting ready for this, and I thought, what soundtrack music do I listen to? All the time? Or what did I spend hours listening to in my car endlessly? Yeah. And all of those fantastic movie soundtracks, and not just the songs, but to me, the thematic materials that he uses the melodies from the songs I just love it. So Alan Menken. I had the great thrill to meet him in New York. I was in New York and I went to see The Little Mermaid.
Okay.
Because it was about to close. Well, it turned out I was there on the closing performance of the Broadway run, and he was there. And so I got to shake his hand and take my picture with him because he's one of my real heroes. And of course, I made a complete idiot of myself because I didn't plan my speech, So like I go up to shake his hand, and then I started in on something about how much he had helped humanity with his melodies or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, what am I saying? It's one of those moments where you're like, I should have planned for my big speech with Alan Menken, but I didn't know he was going to be there, and then there he was.
Yeah, he's great, and like
and I don't think people think of him as
soundtrack. Him too.
They think of him as the song composer. I don't think they think of him for the soundtrack part.
Right.
So I'm not surprised if anybody didn't expect that to be on my list, but
yeah.
Okay, so I bet we have the same number one.
It's gotta be. It's like it has to be. Right, John Williams.
Yeah, John Williams. Of course.
Yeah. And when we were making this list, I'm like, it's gonna be so bland. We might have like two of the same three, which we end up doing. But I mean, you can't deny it. It's like he sets the standard for film composition
for our generation and our whole society where we have been. Like I said, if we were doing this list in 1930, 1940, there were huge giants of the day then. But we grew up listening to it. And like I said a minute ago, I thought, what have I listened to endlessly? Endlessly listened to Star Wars soundtracks, endlessly listened to the Harry Potter music. I have endlessly. E.T., So Famous, Raiders of the Lost Ark. You can go on and on. Schindler's List. When you get into the series, it's on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah. The one like underrated soundtrack from him is Artificial Intelligence. I love that one.
Really?
And there's so many great parts to it. And there's a part where he adds in a Johann Strauss piece as they're entering a city. It's just so good. Cool. Like I recommend going out and like if you have Spotify or Apple Music, see if it's on there. Just listen to it. It's super, super good.
So here's what I'm going to throw out then is my unexpected John Williams soundtrack.
Yeah.
There's a movie way back in the 80s called The Accidental Tourist. Have you ever even heard of this movie?
I've heard of the movie. I don't know anything about it though.
But it's a great movie and I love it. But the soundtrack is just wonderful. And it's one of those sort of quiet, understated movies. So the soundtrack is the same way. But I listen to that over and over and over and over. I just love it. So somebody check that out. See if you can find that on iTunes or something.
Well, that's like
how can you deny John Williams?
Right, exactly. And like for me, like Star Wars is great. That's one of the lesser things I listen to him. So that tells you something about his catalog, Like he's so diversified. Like you said, E.T., like that bike chasing is brilliant.
So famous.
There's so many good things he's written. Empire of the Sun, that theme, and like the bass part in that theme when it gets to the impact, it's so good. Yeah.
Yeah. So we could wax poetic about John Williams forever, and the thing is, it's very easy. Again, it's easy to sort of dismiss him because he's so loved and there's so much of it, But I think when I started making my list, I was like, well, how can you not put him at the top of the list because he's had such a body of work and all so good. And then when you start to really appreciate the variety, like really, when you talk about Schindler's List, it's so different from Star Wars. And to hear him talk about how he creates the soundscape or sort of the sound of each movie and all that,
And then you have like Memoirs of a Geisha or like Catch Me If You Can with more jazz type setting.
Yeah, and of course I love the Harry Potter soundtracks. And it's so funny because I was so nervous when the movie came out. I was literally like just one of those people that was like, I love the book so much I was a nervous wreck about the movie. I admit that I totally was. And so the first time I saw the movie, I was like, oh, it just sounds like all this stuff. I'm sort of disappointed. And then I start listening to it and I just couldn't stop listening to it. And I just played it endlessly because I think it's so brilliant.
His themes are great. Like I truly stand by this statement, and I'm not the only one. I've read it other places too. I truly don't think Star Wars would be what it is today without that soundtrack. I think if there was any other thing in there, it would not be the phenomenon it was today. Because it just puts that bug in your ear, and people are like, no, I would like it for other reasons, but I don't know, it plants something in your head.
Well, and the thing is, we have to remember how important that movie was culturally, and for it changed movies, but how important that soundtrack was. The fact that they chose to use classical music for this groundbreaking film really set the stage for classical soundtracks, orchestra soundtracks for movies, really for up until this day. It was hugely important, and it's so tuneful. Like
right.
And John, I believe that was the first, or at least in a long time, I think it was the first movie soundtrack to go to #1 on the pop chart.
Oh, really?
That soundtrack went to #1.
Yeah.
The main theme was a hit on the pop tracks. I mean, seriously, that's that hasn't happened.
That would never happen now.
But it was. But I mean, that movie. I mean, I remember going to the mall when I was however old I was when Star Wars came out and buying the album. I still have that album.
Yeah.
I have it on. It's on an LP. That's right. It's on disc. That's how old I am. Well, it was 77. So,
Yeah. Hey, that's when I was born.
Thank you, John Williams, for all the great music.
Yeah. What composers did you have for my honorable mentions?
Oh my gosh, this was so hard. I have a really long list. So Bernard Herrmann.
Yeah, he was my number 4.
Yeah, he would probably be
right there. Yeah.
I mean, if nothing else, just for Psycho. In the North by Northwest and Vertigo.
But with Psycho, though, it's not just like that main theme or the shower scene where it's like he has this like waiting music, just like this music that's just like we're waiting, but it's so super interesting.
And it's all strings.
Oh, is it? See, I haven't listened to it for a couple years.
There's only strings in that. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think you're right because I don't.
That was one of his strokes of genius was that he knew that would make you especially uncomfortable. Something about that sound of the tension. All right. I also had Eric Korngold.
See, I've tried to listen to some of his stuff and I just can't get into it.
Oh, come on. Some of those swashbuckling pirate themes. It's like such great stuff.
I'll give it another go.
All right, listen to some of that. All right, I mentioned Rosa, of course, who was like all those big biblical epics and back in the 40s, 50s.
Yes. When Phantom performed 2003 and they said they were going to perform stuff, I was like, yes, I'm on board.
Yeah. James Newton Howard.
Yeah.
I mean, he could have been in my top 3.
Right.
As could have Thomas Newman.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing stuff from Thomas Newman. And then I also have, I don't know how you say it exactly, Alexander Desplat? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, he's one that's been doing a lot more stuff lately. And like, there's like the Painted Veil soundtrack, which there's like a water wheel track on there that is absolutely just
all his stuff is fantastic. The last 2 Harry Potter movies were him, but also the first time I heard him and noticed him was the Girl with the Golden Earring, Girl with the Pearl Earring. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Okay. No.
That's amazing. And the one that Helen Mirren was the Queen, might have been called the Queen. Anyway, he has this way of creating this certain sound that I really appreciate.
Did he do Shape of Water? I'm not 100% sure about that.
But he's doing a lot. Like he's become like very common. And he's making a big name, and I think he's super talented.
Yeah, and then there's like Michael Giacchino, who Incredibles, like that soundtrack like set the stage for like his career.
Yeah, it really did.
But like Star Trek, great, and like stuff like his signature is being able to find these melodies that are just absolutely beautiful and hits like right to the core of the scene. Like the end of Super 8 is one of my all-time favorite parts. It's so good. Yeah.
So there's a lot of them. I mean, there were so many. It was very hard to come up with 3, but we did it.
Yeah.
John, this was fun. Everybody, make sure you go to Tone Deaf Comics, check out the great work that John's doing, and buy some posters for your classroom.
That helps me out, and kids think they're funny, so.
Yeah, and of course, go to Marching Roundtable and marchingartseducation.com. Thanks, John. This was fun.
Thanks, Tim.
Go to ToneDeafComics.com to see the great work John is doing, including the latest comics and great merchandise like posters for your classroom. You can also sign up to get comics emailed to you as they are released. ToneDeafComics.com. Go to MarchingArtsEducation.com, where you can get access to the top marching arts professionals through live webinars, videos, and coursework. Imagine where you can take your group with just a few new valuable ideas.
You can interact with the experts and ask questions during live webinars. MarchingArtsEducation.com. And go to MarchingRoundtable.com to see over 750 podcasts. Make yourself more valuable by listening in the car, at the gym, or at your convenience. There's great entertaining conversations on most every topic you might need help with. Get some fresh ideas to help take your group to the next level at MarchingRoundtable.com.